Hi, friends. This is Yana. Since discovering that the last 20 years of my life I was being poisoned with scopolamine by my stepfather, many things started to make sense. 11 years ago, my stepfather walked me down the aisle when I married my ex-husband. My first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage, placenta previa. I had many blood clots that were concentrating in the placenta, damaging it and killing the baby. It was devastating. My stepfather was the first person I broke the news about my pregnancy. His face broke into a grin or a scowl. He could never smile. Whenever he tried to smile, it was so strained and forced, it looked unnatural. Then he proceeded to poison me with scopolamine until I lost the pregnancy. Scopolamine poisoning causes blood to clot. Pregnancy is marked by an increase of blood flow, especially to placenta, which acts as a filter before entering the uterus, where the baby grows. I had many severe migraines after the loss of the baby. I went to see the best naturopathic doctors following miscarriage. I was devastated about the loss, and I wanted medical answers to what happened. That's where I tried IV chelation therapy, which seemed to help temporarily. My blood work and hormones were checked within intervals, and everything looked normal. I paid for everything out of pocket, and it was adding up to thousands of dollars, so I had to stop. After 2 years went by, my ex-husband and I decided to try for another baby. Unbeknownst to me, my stepfather was poisoning me with scopolamine through handwritten letters he was sending me. My second pregnancy continued longer, into 26 weeks, which is extremely preterm, but the baby is considered viable to live. I entered the hospital a day before Thanksgiving. I spent 3 weeks in the hospital under constant medical monitoring before delivering a baby by C-section. My stepfather was visiting me at the hospital and brought me gifts. A Christmas necklace, something I can wear on my skin, that would deliver the poison without anyone suspecting. Soon after his visit, the baby showed signs of distress and had to be delivered earlier than planned. On December 11th, 2015, my baby girl was born. I remained in the hospital with her, practically moving in to stay at her bedside for 6 months. 8 days after she was born, she endured an intestinal surgery to save her life. A section of her small intestine was removed and she was given a stoma. She was only 1 pound 4 ounces when she was born, but continued to put on weight with a combination of breast milk and formula. When she was that tiny, she would fit between my breasts when I held her, and she would make a squeaking noise with the CPAP machine she used to breathe. She sounded like a baby bird. Having a small child fighting for her life in a neonatal ICU is an agonizing experience. You just don't know what to expect, and the roller coaster of emotions is hard to deal with. This difficult experience is what brought me apart from my ex-husband. He was more interested in what was in the cafeteria for lunch than the health of our infant. I filed for divorce and a protection order because of abuse prior to the birth of our child. He had limited access to the baby in the hospital. It makes my blood boil when I realize that my stepfather had full access to my baby girl at the hospital and pretended to be a doting grandfather. while he secretly poisoned her, with me standing in the same room. She underwent one more surgery to put back her intestine and remove the stoma, and one procedure to close up a small hole in her heart that closes up by itself in full-term babies. None of them were life-threatening, and she showed signs of recovery. During both, my stepfather was by my side, pretending to be a supportive parent, while planning to take away the life of an innocent child. After 6 months of fighting for her life, my baby girl went into a coma for 3 days. After many attempts to save her life, the doctors took her off life support. I will never forget when she opened her eyes after a 3-day coma. She had the most blue, almost violet glow in her eyes. They looked otherworldly. It was her way of saying goodbye. In narcissistic abuse, this is called trauma bonding, when the abuser causes trauma to the victim, then offers a solution. I was targeted because I was primed to take abuse in childhood from my family. I was isolated and estranged from my family. Then I was poisoned and brainwashed to believe that my abuser was the only family member who cared about me. After divorce and death of a child, my stepfather bought a condo in a suburb of Seattle and let me move in. He had a set of keys, which allowed him to come and go at any time. He paid for the funeral expenses and bought a neighboring plot next to my daughter, intended for me. He explained it as being thoughtful and wanting me to be buried next to her. Coupled with the fact that he asked me to create a will to give him the right to take me off life support in case of a coma after an accident, it all points to the fact that he was planning to stage my death as an accident. He knew that sooner or later I would end up in a car accident due to his drugging me with scopolamine. Once I discovered that I was being poisoned, I watched many videos on YouTube titled Datura Trip Report. Many of these trips don't end well, with people waking up in the hospital with injuries and no memory of what happened. I survived such a car accident in 2021 with no memory of events leading up to the accident. The car airbag deployed and I walked away from the accident. Thankfully, no one else was hurt. On my birthday last year, I received a big bouquet of flowers from my stepfather. This was 6 months after I discovered that he was poisoning me with scopolamine. I blocked him from contacting me, but still struggled with the idea that someone I trusted would attempt to take my life. I nearly died on my birthday after I was drugged with scopolamine through smelling and touching the flowers. I was riding my e-bike around at midnight and had an accident. I have no memory of it whatsoever. No one else was involved. My body was covered in bruises and scrapes. I was thrown off my e-bike and hit the back of my head on the pavement. If not for a helmet, I would not have survived it. I believe my guardian angels were looking out for me. I've been close to death many times because of exposure to scopolamine. The connection between me being acutely poisoned and Thanksgiving holiday is really uncanny. I guess my abuser felt like I was his object of ownership and had to show him gratitude for all the quote-unquote support he was providing me. He would often say to me, "You are the most valuable thing I have." He regarded me as a thing, an object to be controlled and manipulated, or disposed of when he was done with me. This man has really dug himself a deep hole. He has no children and no significant relationships. Before me, he had no one to spend holidays with. I've only been to his home a few times, but the man is a hoarder. Hermetic principle states, what's above, so below. His internal landscape looks just like his home, chaotic, distorted, and broken. I'm only happy that I saw through his deception and freed myself from further poisoning and abuse.